Hey, how's it going, YouTube? I'm back in the video, and today I'm going to talk about why the Memphis Grizzlies season could potentially be completely over. As, yes, right now they are the A seed in the bubble, but they have been doing a very, very bad job at keeping that A seed, as they are currently only have one win since the NBA has restarted, and that has part to do due to injuries and part due to not just them not playing that good. So yeah, I'm beginning to all that. In this video, I'm beginning to how I think their season could be over, and they might not even make the playoffs at this point anymore, when they were one of the favorites to win that A seed going into the restart before it actually did restart. So a lot of people expected the Grizzlies to easily have this A seed locked up, or at least be in the play-in tournament, but they're running a risk of not even making the play-in tournament. So I'm going to be getting into all that in this video. So if you do like the video, hit the like button and subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. And without further ado, without rambling on too much, just get right into this video. Alright, so the first thing I'm beginning to for this video is going to be their success without Jarren Jackson Jr., or their lack of success without Jarren Jackson Jr. As if you don't know, when the Memphis Grizzlies don't have Jarren Jackson Jr., they go from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Memphis Teddy Bears. They're not the greatest team without him, and that makes sense. He is their second best player and one of the more underrated players in the NBA, and it does show, as in the 13 games this season that he has not played, they were only 5-8. They have a losing record. In games against teams that are currently in the bubble, they were only 2-8, with one of those wins coming from the Brooklyn Nets. So with that all being said, those 13 games, if those are the sample size we're going off of, and you take away the 3 Atlanta Hawks wins, the team does not do very good when you're going against other playoff teams. And that is a pretty big deal, seeing that from here on out they're only going against playoff level teams because they're in the bubble. So them not having much success without him in the normal regular season doesn't bode well for them now having success without him in the regular season leading to the playoffs. So I just don't see how that's going to correlate in a good way at all, and their success without him is very, very non-existent, which is going to hurt this team a lot, as they still have what, 3 more games left, and if they lose all 4 or 3 of those games, they could legitimately see themselves sitting outside of the playoffs and having to win the play-in tournament and win those 2 games instead of the 1 to make the playoffs. Now yes, the reward is to get swept by the Los Angeles Lakers, but still it would look very bad on the Memphis Grizzlies if they went from the 8th seed to not even making the playoffs in 8 games. That would look very, very bad on them for multiple reasons. One, because that's going to hurt their coaching staff's confidence, it's going to hurt their players' confidence, and it's also going to raise the confidence of other teams around the league to make you think that they're not as good as they really are, and teams are going to lose respect for you, which is going to, in result, make it them no longer intimidate to play you, and they're going to be able to come out more confident when they're playing you. It's just going to be all bad. So they either need to find a way to win without Jarren Jackson Jr., or they're going to be in quite big trouble. But not only are they going to be missing his talent on the court, well, their depth is also going to struggle, as it is already not the best. But now, with Jackson being out, that leads to Brandon Clarke becoming the starting power forward, which really isn't that big of a downgrade. Brandon Clarke is a very good player, maybe the steal of the draft, but the problem comes in when you start looking at who's on their bench now. Their 6th man is Kyle Anderson, who isn't bad. He's a decent player. He is 6-man caliber of a level player. But then you go to who's their next backup power forward, who is Josh Jackson. And I know Josh Jackson usually plays better at the end of the season, but to say it nicely, he hasn't had the best NBA season, and he was so bad he got traded from the Phoenix Suns, and that's when you know you're pretty bad. So with that being said, their depth is going to be a big problem, as it already isn't that good. But now with them no longer having their 6-man and Brandon Clarke, because he has to start, Kyle Anderson's going to have to play a much bigger role. Josh Jackson's going to have to play a bigger role. Every player off their bench is going to have to play a bigger role, and if they don't want to go that route, and they don't want to give more responsibility to players that they usually wouldn't have to, they're going to have to lean on their starters more, which is going to make them get more minutes, and get them more tired and get them more susceptible to injuries, which is just never good. So really, whichever way they go has its pros and cons, and I mean, their depth is going to cause problems for this team, and it is just going to be bad all around. As I mean, with a team that has like a depth, an injury could be catastrophic to them, and that is kind of what we're seeing with the Memphis Grizzlies. But now my third thing I want to get in this video is going to be now their chemistry is going to be pretty messed up. As with this being pretty much the first time in Ja Morant's career since it is his rookie year that he will be playing without Jarren Jackson Jr., he's going to have to prove he can still be the same elite level scorer he can be when Jackson's on the floor. Because when Jackson's on the floor, teams now have two main guys they have to worry about, and he takes a lot of pressure off of them. Well, now he's not going to be in there, and now the pressure is all on Ja Morant to score. As if they have Dylan Brooks, Brandon Clark, and Scar. They have other good, solid role players, but Ja Morant still has to be that star, and it's going to be pretty interesting to see if he can stay at that elite level of play he's been at all year now that Jarren Jackson Jr. is gone. It is going to be extremely, extremely interesting to see how good he can be, or if he's going to crumble under the pressure. Can he carry a team offensively? It was going to be cool to see all that, especially with this being his first time without his right-hand man and Jarren Jackson Jr. for an extended amount of time. But now my fourth reason is going to be the star talent is just not there. So even if they make the playoffs, no one was expecting them to win the series against the Lakers, obviously. But I think teams expected them to at least win maybe 1-2 games. Well, they're not going to even do that. I mean, their star talent's just not there. Jarren Jackson Jr. is an all-star level player. Ja Morant is going to be an all-star level player. So, I mean, that was their star talent. But now you lost 50% of your star talent, and Brandon Clark's good, but he's not an all-star level player, at least not yet. And Ja Morant is now the only other all-star level player. And as you know, most of the time, one all-star level player is not enough to make even the playoffs. But since they got them so far, when they had those two, they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to get swept. Their star talent is just not there. It's barely enough to get into the playoffs right now due to how young they are and how underdeveloped. But now that they lost 50% of that, there's literally no chance. Like, I mean, without Jarren Jackson Jr. on this team, they're pretty much the Atlanta Hawks with a really good point guard, but not much else after that. And yes, they do have a decent team around him, but even their role players aren't good enough to really help win a game. Like, they don't have a Fred VanVleet on their team. They don't have an OG Anunoby. I know there's 2 Raptors players. I'm not a Raptors fan. Those are just really good role players. But, like, they don't have a Brook Lopez. They don't have an Eric Bledsoe. They don't have a Drew Holiday. Nothing like that to really keep their team afloat now that one of their stars are out. They don't have anybody like that, and this team's extremely young and inexperienced, and it's just not going to go well even if they do make the playoffs in this play-in tournament. It's just going to be very, very bad if they do make the playoffs. So yeah, but unfortunately, guys, that's the move for this video. So comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think that the Grizzlies season is over? Do you think they can still make the playoffs? Do you not? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like the video, aim point the like button and subscribe button. It mean the absolute world to me, and I hope you have a blessed day. Have a blessed day. So you need to have a blessed day. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.